The Cosmic Song, a tale of unity between stars and humanity. Foreword. Dear reader, you are holding in your hands, or allowing its voice to fill you, a story that is not a book in the ordinary sense. It is the song of the new earth, a tale of people and stars, of worlds both near and far, but above all, a story of your own heart. Here you will not find dry dates, facts, or cold analyses. Instead, you will discover a melody flowing through words, through the spaces between them, through the silence that completes them. This tale is an invitation to listen not only with your eyes or ears, but with the whole of your being. It is a journey to what is purest within us, the courage to release old worlds, and the love that can unite people, generations, and even civilizations. Each chapter is like a step into deeper resonance with the song, until at last you realize it never came from outside. It has always been within you. Do not hurry. Let the words shape themselves into images, and the images into sounds. Allow the song to guide you, for it knows where you are going. And when silence comes, perhaps you will see that it is not an ending. It is the beginning of what has always been, love that remembers. Blank. Blank. Chapter 1. The Herald. No one knew when it truly began. Perhaps in that first moment when a fog heavier than usual rose over the Vistula, carrying with it the scent of ozone and memories no one could possibly have. Or perhaps when children in various cities of Poland began to draw strange, alien planets on their school papers, skies painted violet, forests glowing with golden fire. It was the year 2025, and Poland lived, as always, to the rhythm of everyday life, cues, news, street conversations. Yet beneath the thin layer of the familiar, something else began to pulse. The unknown, the unseen, and yet undeniably present. As if from behind a curtain of light, the breath of distant worlds was watching us. Lena, a young researcher from Krakow, was not seeking miracles. Her life was simple: sky observations, telescope data, long nights spent over a glowing screen. And yet she was the first to hear a whisper no program could record. A delicate, rhythmic beating, like the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. At first, she thought it was interference. But when she looked at the graphs, she saw that the pulse responded to something more. To every human emotion, to every smile and every tear that arose across Poland in that same moment. As though, among the stars, someone had synchronized alien planets with the beating hearts along the Vistula. That night, as the fog lifted from the river, Lena saw the light. It was no star, no satellite. It was a passage. A crystal gate trembling with colors no artist had ever known. It opened silently, as though waiting for someone to notice. Beyond it lay Altara, a planet no one on Earth had heard of, and yet one that had known us for ages. Its sky burned violet, its trees whispered with deep voices the melodies of forgotten epics. Beings of pure light drifted above the ground, and every movement of theirs answered what was happening in Poland. A burst of joy in Warsaw became a rainbow across their land. Sorrow in Gdańsk drew silver clouds across their sky. Worlds were blending without our knowledge. Poland was but a thin veil, and behind it something inevitable was approaching. Other planets, other energies, other beings. Not to conquer us, but to remind us we had never been alone. Lena already knew this was only the beginning. The fog over the Vistula would not easily vanish, the portal's glow would return, opening new passages. And that the mysterious had stepped into our lives forever. Chapter 2. Noctis. The shadow that returns. The fog over the Vistula did not lift the next day. On the contrary, it seemed with each morning to grow thicker, heavier, as though it carried more than water and air within it. People crossing the bridges noticed that the echo of their footsteps stretched strangely, as if it rebounded not from cobblestones, but from some hidden, distant expanse. Lena spent her nights by the portal. She did not know why no one but her paid attention to the luminous gate. Was it invisible to most, or did people simply prefer not to look toward mystery? Either way, every evening she stood on the riverbank and watched the portal's colors ripple, shifting like a breath. That night, something was different. The colors dimmed, the light trembled uneasily. And then Lena saw it for the first time, the shadow. It was not a human shape, nor any beast. Rather, a smear, a darkness denser than night itself, slipping slowly out from behind the portal, as though testing whether it was allowed to enter. Its presence chilled the air, and from the Vistula rose the scent of wet metal. This was Noctis, a planet born in utter opposition to Altara. Where Altara was song and light, Noctis was silence and a black sky without a single star. Noctis had no colors of its own, no music of its own. It fed on reflections, stealing the echoes of others' emotions, desires, and fears. Lena felt it in her body. The weight of doubt, a sudden coldness hanging heavy on her heart. That was the way of this planet. It pulled a person into a labyrinth of thoughts with no exit. But then, from within the portal, another voice arose. Not words, but melody. A deep, radiant tone from Altara. Its inhabitants, beings woven of pure light, sang a shield to hold back Noctis. For a moment the light flared, and the shadow recoiled like a wave retreating with the tide. Lena understood then that Poland stood at the crossroads of two planetary forces, Altara and Noctis. And the portal above the Vistula was no accident, but a choice. It was here that the story of light and shadow would unfold. She did not yet know that other planets were already drawing near to our shores. That each would speak in a different voice, bearing either a gift or a warning. And that the time had come for ordinary people, farmers, musicians, children, the elderly, to begin dreaming of other worlds, and through their dreams to shield Poland from the dark. Chapter 3. Arena, the Planet of Dreams. As the nights passed, the portal above the Vistula became less a mystery and more a rhythm. It appeared and vanished always at the same hour, as though waiting for something greater than a single human gaze. Lena noticed she was no longer alone. Children from nearby tenements no longer slept at their usual times. Instead, they filled pages with drawings of unknown landscapes, and their mothers complained that their sons or daughters spoke in their sleep with strange tongues. These were no languages of earth. They sounded like the strings of a harp, the creaking of stars, the laughter of water at a spring. And it was then that the second planet arrived. It did not step through the portal like the shadow of Noctis. It came differently, through dreams. First to children, then to artists, and at last to simple folk who lay down exhausted after work. Anyone who dreamed might suddenly find themselves upon a vast meadow of flowers pulsing with light. Above them floated azure spheres, and the sky itself was like a lake turned upside down. This was Arena, the planet of dreams and images that live their own lives. It had no inhabitants of flesh or light, but forms woven from longing. Every dream a human had set aside found its body there. Unfulfilled songs became birds, and spoken words of love. Roses with petals of glass, and long-forgotten childhood games. Golden insects that buzzed in the air like laughter. Lena dreamed of Arena on the first night of September. She saw there a small child in a white dress holding in its hands a key larger than itself. "This is for Poland," it whispered. "The key that opens doors in hearts." She woke weeping, though she knew not why. The next day she met an old man by the Vistula. He looked like an ordinary fisherman, yet in his eyes shimmered the colors of Arena. He gazed at her gravely and said, "The planets have come because the time has come. Arena gives people dreams so they may prepare. Noctis already waits to take them away. And Altara sings so the dreams will not be extinguished." Then he walked away, dissolving into the morning mist. That day Lena understood that Poland had become not only a place of everyday life, but a gateway through which flowed what had long remained hidden. The meeting of light and shadow that concerned everyone, without exception. Chapter 4. Collective Dreams. September 2025 became an extraordinary time in Poland. People began to speak of dreams that were far too similar to be called coincidence. In Warsaw, tram drivers, meeting for their morning shifts, told one another that in the night they had seen the same dream. A bridge woven of light, spanning not a river but an abyss full of stars. In small villages near Bialystok, women awoke at the same hour, recalling a vision of a great key resting upon an altar of crystal. In Gdańsk, schoolchildren drew maps of unknown continents on classroom boards, and when teachers compared the sketches, they discovered that the children had drawn nearly identical landscapes. It was Arena, the planet of dreams, spreading herself above Poland like an invisible canopy. Her meadows bloomed in human hearts. Her luminous insects carried visions to anyone who had once allowed themselves to be swept away by imagination. But the dreams were not only beautiful. They began to guide. In Poznan, a dozen strangers who had never met before gathered by chance in the same square. Each of them had come because, in their sleep, they heard the same call. "Go to the place where 3 bells toll, and you will find the sign." When they stood together, they heard the real bells of St. Martin's Church ringing in the silence. A radiance appeared in the air, and on the cobblestones a pattern emerged, resembling a constellation of stars. Similar events unfolded in Lublin, in Wrocław, even in the small towns where life had always moved quietly and uneventfully. Lena watched all of this, her heart pounding faster than ever. She felt that the dreams were no accident, but a summons, preparation for something yet to come. And then the first gatherings began. People who arrived in the same places recognized each other as if they had long been acquainted. They shared their visions, discovering that each had seen only a fragment of a greater whole. As they pieced the dreams together like a puzzle, a map began to emerge, though they did not yet know how to read it. Altara sang, Irena bestowed visions, and Noctis already lurked in shadow. And Poland, ordinary, earthly, everyday, was becoming a stage upon which worlds intertwined so deeply that the boundary between dream and waking slowly disappeared. Chapter 5. The First Gatherings. Irena's visions were no longer just whispers of the night. They began to take form in the light of day. In Warsaw, a dozen souls who had once glimpsed the Bridge of Light met again, this time with intent. They gathered along the Vistula boulevards, each carrying the quiet certainty that they could no longer remain mere spectators. When their eyes met, they recognized one another with a familiarity deeper than simple acquaintance. Lena was among them. It was she who first gave voice to the question that circled in every heart, why us? The answer was silence. Yet within that silence, each one knew they had been summoned because they could dream together. Days later, similar gatherings began to arise in other cities. In Poznan, they came together, guided by a dream of 3 bells. In Lublin, dozens assembled among the ruins of an old factory, drawn there by a melody they had all heard in sleep. In Gdańsk, students laid out their drawings of unknown continents side by side, and a map emerged, one that none could have drawn alone. These were the first communities of vision. There were no leaders, no organization, only a pulse, the steady heartbeat that led them all in the same direction. They began with simple acts, tracing dream symbols in the soil, singing melodies that drifted from Altara, arranging stones and candles in places that had appeared in their visions. And then, suddenly, something happened. In Warsaw, on the night after their first gathering, as they sang softly by the river, the portal shone brighter than ever before. Colors deepened, and the air filled with the fragrance of honey and rain. It was Althara's reply, a sign that she saw and heard them. But then, from afar, came a colder sound. A vast rustling, as though thousands of wings stirred the night. Noctis was watching as well. Each gathering awakened not only the light, but also the shadow. Soon, all across Poland, people spoke of the dreamers, strange groups who met beneath the night sky, bearing silence, songs, and visions of other worlds. The media called them a sect, some feared their presence. Yet more and more began to dream together and were drawn to the gatherings, unable to resist the call. For something greater than fear had already begun. Chapter 6. Places awakened anew. The first gatherings had kindled a flame in Poland that could no longer be extinguished. Those who dreamed together now began to see new visions. Not bridges nor quays this time, but landscapes, mountain peaks, lakes, forgotten ruins, meadows hidden deep in the forests. Lena dreamt of a smooth stone standing alone atop a mountain. On its surface, signs appeared like constellations of stars, but whenever she tried to memorize them, they shifted as if alive. Others spoke of a lake that suddenly glowed from within, or of an ancient monastery whose walls pulsed with light. It did not take long before they set out for these places. On Mount Sleza, a group of dozens gathered. Each had come from a different city, led by the same dream. When they stood before the old ritual stone, a deep, resonant tone filled the air, as though the mountain itself was singing. The stone warmed beneath their palms, and above the summit the portal flared bright, though no cloud crossed the sky. In the Bieszczada Mountains, at Lake Salina, people began to gather on the shore at dawn. The water lay still, until suddenly waves of light rippled across its surface, forming rings. One man stepped into the lake and later told how he felt the whole world breathing beneath his feet. In the underground chambers of the old monastery at Tynik, Lena and others discovered a place where, in the silence of the walls, something could be heard that did not belong to the earthly world. A rhythm like the heartbeat of something vast. There she understood that Poland had always been full of hidden gates, but only now were they beginning to open. These places became the hearths of Althara's light and Irena's visions. Yet every awakening drew the shadow as well. People whispered of strangers who appeared during the gatherings, standing in the distance, watching in silence. No one knew if they were merely curious passers-by, or messengers of Noctis. One truth grew ever clearer. These were no longer dreams or chance coincidences. Poland of the year 2025 was becoming a map of mysteries, and the people themselves were turning into living points upon that map. Like stars in a new constellation, whose meaning had yet to be revealed. Chapter 7. The Breathing Network. What had begun as scattered gatherings soon revealed itself as part of something greater. People noticed that the places to which their dreams had led them were not random. When someone traced them onto a map of Poland, a line emerged, then another, until at last a vast pattern appeared, like a great living net. From the Świętokrzyski Mountains to the Masurian Lakes, from the Bieszczada Peaks to the Baltic shore. The meeting points aligned into constellations, as though the earth itself mirrored the stars shining above Altara. When Lena first saw this map, she felt she was not looking at geography, but at a living organism. Poland was the heart, and the sacred sites were its arteries, through which a new energy had begun to flow. During later gatherings, something extraordinary occurred. When people sang at the same time on Sleza Mountain and by Lake Salina, both groups suddenly shared the same vision. A radiant bridge stretched between mountain and water, and across it walked beings of Altara, carrying crystal lamps. In Lublin and Gdańsk, when children drew their dreams, the images began to complete one another. One child sketched the beginning of a bridge, another its end, and only together did the full picture emerge. It was a network that breathed. Each person who joined became part of it. People began to sense each other's emotions even across distance. When someone in Warsaw sang a hymn, its echo was heard by those who prayed in the mountains at that same hour. But with the network also came warning. Noctis did not remain idle. At moments when the energy grew strongest, disturbances appeared. Luminous visions darkened. Instead of colors and melodies, there fell a silence heavy as stone. Some claimed they dreamt of black threads, creeping in to ensnare the network, to sever its points from one another. Lena began to understand that what was unfolding was not only a radiant awakening. It was a battlefield. Altara gave light, Arena gave dreams, and Noctis sought to cut the threads and scatter the people. Yet the network grew. More and more in Poland began to dream together, more and more came to the gatherings. No one asked why anymore. Each felt they were part of something larger than a single life. And when, on one night, all the dreamers beheld the same vision, an immense crystal gate reflecting their own faces, they knew the moment of turning had come. Chapter 8. The first opening of the gate. It happened on the night of the equinox. They had not arranged it, yet all knew that on this day they must gather in their places. On Sleza, in the Bieszczada, by the Baltic, in Tynik, in small towns and villages. All of Poland breathed with a single rhythm. Lena stood by the Vistula. The portal she had known for months trembled as never before. The air was heavy with the scent of rain, though not a drop had fallen. In the silence, there was only the sound of human breath, dozens, then hundreds, drawn there by their dreams. At midnight, all closed their eyes at once. They did not know what to do. And yet, in the same moment, they began to sing. It was no known song. The melody was born from their hearts, each voice joining like another note in a vast symphony. And then it happened. The network they had woven across Poland ignited. On Sleza, they saw light rising into the sky like a pillar of fire. By the Baltic, the waves shimmered gold, as though the sea itself had caught flame from within. In Tynik, the monastery walls resonated with a deep tone, as if the stones themselves were singing. And above the Vistula, the portal opened in full. It was no longer a trembling veil of colors. Now it became an immense structure of crystal, its summit vanishing into the clouds. Within it pulsed a light so pure that tears welled in every eye. People saw their own faces reflected there, yet transfigured, radiant, revealed as who they truly were. Through the gate the beings of Altara began to pass, not as conquerors, but as guests. Each carried a crystal lamp, burning with a light not of this world. As they set them upon the earth, the air filled with tones like the ancient songs of generations long past. And then Arena's dreams merged with waking. Around them rose visions. Bridges of light, lakes alive with color, flowers blooming in the air. All that had once been dream alone now became tangible. The first opening of the gate was an experience that transformed Poland. Thousands saw the same, felt the same, walked together through the same vision. But in that moment, as the light reached its zenith, Lena saw the shadow too. At the edge of the gate, like a crack in the crystal, darkness began to seep. It was Noctis. He could not prevent the opening, but he could taint it. And then all understood. The opening of the gate was only the beginning. Chapter 9. Beyond the Gate. When the light of the gate fell like a veil, a path appeared. It was not of stone nor of earth, but of pulsing crystals that bore the weight of every step. Lena took the first stride and felt she was not moving through space, but through herself. Others followed after her. Each who crossed the threshold felt as though they were leaving behind the burden of old fears. And when they opened their eyes, they stood in another world. The sky was different there, violet, translucent, woven from slow waves of light. Instead of a sun, 3 immense crystals shone above, suspended in the firmament like stars close enough to touch. They gave not only light and warmth, but also song. Each breath of air vibrated with their harmony. The ground was soft as moss, yet gleamed like glass. Forests stretched to the horizon, filled not with leaves but with radiant orbs. Their glow bathed all things in tender hues, as if the world itself was breathing in a dream. And then they appeared. The beings of Altara looked like humans, yet their faces shone with light, and their eyes held the reflection of the entire sky. They did not move as mortals move. Each step was like a dance, each word like a chord in a vast symphony. They welcomed the newcomers without fear, as though they had been waiting for them all along. One of the beings approached Lena and touched her brow. "You have come, and you are not alone. The network of Earth is ready. Now we must weave it with ours." In that moment Lena beheld a vision. Altara was not a solitary world but one among many. Each had its own network, its own rhythm, its own song. And now the time had come for these worlds to begin to interlace. Those who passed through the gate experienced the same. Each saw their own memories in a new light, as though Altara revealed the true meaning of their lives. Children laughed, for the plants made music when touched. The old wept, for the stones spoke with the voices of long-departed loved ones. Yet there was also warning. On the horizon, where the forest gave way to mountains, a thin line of shadow lay. Nothing stirred, yet all felt that Noctis was hidden there. The beings of Altara spoke. "The gate is open to light and to shadow. All that enters will find its reflection here. That is why you must learn not only to welcome light, but to transform shadow. Otherwise, it is shadow that will transform you." These words sank deep into the hearts of the people. For now they were not only guests in a new world, they were guardians of the gate. Chapter 10. The Weavers of the Network. The first days after the opening of the gate were like a dream. People wandered through Altara, guided by its beings to places that pulsed with power. Each region had its own heart. Valleys sang with the voices of crystals, lakes shimmered with visions of the future, mountains rang like bells in rhythm with the cosmos. The Altharians called the people weavers, for their task was not only to marvel, but to bind together. "Your Poland has a network, we have a network. But neither is complete until we are woven as one," said one of the beings, whose name was Urin. So they began with shared works. On the plains of Altara they raised the first columns of crystal, each one answering to a place of power in Poland. When someone sang upon Sleza, the crystal on the plains resounded with the same tone. When by the Baltic someone prayed in silence, the lakes of Altara began to ripple. It was the weaving of 2 worlds. In this process, the children held a special role. They understood the language of Altara best, for they did not try to explain it. When they ran through the valleys, the plants blossomed, and the crystals glowed brighter. Urin explained, "Children carry no weight of old wars. That is why they are pure conduits." The adults, meanwhile, began to learn a new kind of labor. They did not raise walls nor build factories. Their work was presence, focus, song, and dance. Every movement of the body became a thread in a vast tapestry, binding Altara and Poland together. Lena, standing amidst it all, felt that here lay the meaning of the entire journey. It was never about fleeing the earthly world, but uniting it with something greater. Yet as the network grew brighter, the first disturbances appeared. At times the crystal columns went dark, as though severed. Children's visions grew tangled. Instead of bridges of light they saw dark corridors leading nowhere. The Altharians knew what this meant. Noctis seeks the fractures in the weave. The stronger our light, the more he longs to cut our threads. They understood the moment would come when shadow would strike openly. But before that, they had to strengthen the network, so that no darkness could tear it apart.